This fictional horror story created for entertainment. The events, locations, and people described are invented. The Juneteenth Massacre, a scene at 11:30, original horror tale. Most people know the history books, most people know the speeches, most people know the songs sung on Juneteenth. But in the tiny town of Blackwater Crossing, there was another story. A story nobody told. A story nobody wrote down. A story that appeared only in whispers. And according to local legend, that was intentional. Because every record of what happened was destroyed. Every photograph vanished. Every witness disappeared. Every year on the night of June 19th, someone would remember, then forget again by sunrise. The first mention of it appeared in 1977. A traveling reporter named Harold Bishop arrived in Blackwater Crossing looking for stories about local Juneteenth celebrations. Instead, he found an old woman sitting alone on her porch. She was 92 years old, blind, and terrified. When Harold asked if she remembered the first Juneteenth celebration in town, the old woman began crying, not quietly, not softly, violently, as if she had suddenly seen something standing behind him. "What happened?" Harold asked. The old woman grabbed his arm. Her fingernails dug into his skin. Then she whispered 4 words. They never stopped singing. That night, Harold filled 6 pages of notes, witness statements, local rumors, old family stories, names, dates, descriptions. The next morning, every page was blank. Every single one. Even stranger, Harold had cuts across his forearms, tiny shallow cuts, as though someone had written on his skin with a razor blade. The cuts formed a sentence he swore had not been there the night before. It read, "Do not count them." He left town immediately. 3 weeks later, he died in a single-car accident. Police found one thing unusual inside the wreckage. On the passenger seat sat a small wooden church bell. Nobody knew where it came from. Harold had never owned one. For decades, nobody paid attention. Until the internet arrived. And that is when the stories started appearing. The same details, again and again and again. Always from different people, different ages, different states, different backgrounds. Yet the story never changed. According to the legend, on June 19, 1867, the residents of Blackwater Crossing held what should have been their largest Juneteenth celebration. Formerly enslaved families gathered in a meadow just outside town. Music played, children laughed, food covered long wooden tables. Freedom had finally arrived, or so they believed. At sunset, a preacher arrived. Nobody knew him. Nobody recognized him. Nobody remembered seeing him enter town. Witnesses described him differently. Some said he was black. Some said he was white. Some claimed he was old. Others insisted he looked younger than 20. But every account agreed on one thing. His eyes. His eyes reflected no light, not sunlight, not lantern light, nothing. As if they were holes cut into reality itself. The preacher climbed onto a wagon. He rang a church bell once, twice, 3 times, then smiled, and asked a question. "Would you like to hear the freedom song?" Everyone laughed. Everyone cheered. Everyone agreed. Why would they not? It was Juneteenth. It was a celebration. The preacher began singing. Nobody remembered the words, only the melody. A melody people claimed felt familiar, as though they had always known it, as though they had heard it before birth. Families joined in, neighbors joined in, children joined in. Soon the entire gathering was singing, hundreds of voices. One song, one rhythm, one sound. Then night fell, and nobody stopped singing. Not because they did not want to, because they could not. The melody continued, hour after hour, voice after voice, smile after smile. People began bleeding from their mouths, still singing. People collapsed from exhaustion, still singing. People screamed. Yet somehow the screams became part of the song. When dawn arrived, the meadow was empty. Everyone was gone. No bodies, no blood, no footprints, nothing. Only the church bell remained, swinging gently from a tree branch. Though there was no wind, the town searched for weeks. No trace, no explanation, no answers. The preacher was never seen again. But the story did not end there, because every year afterwards something strange happened. People would wake on June 19th with dirt beneath their fingernails. Others found muddy footprints inside locked houses. Some heard singing from empty fields. Others reported entire crowds visible in distant fog. Thousands of figures standing together, motionless, watching, listening, waiting. And then came the recordings. In 1998, a local teenager named Marcus brought a camcorder to the meadow. He planned to debunk the legend. Nothing happened. At least that is what he believed, until he reviewed the tape. At exactly 11:30 p.m., the image distorted. Static consumed the screen, audio crackled. Then the singing began. Soft, distant, almost gentle. Behind the noise appeared figures, hundreds of them, standing in rows, facing the camera. Nobody moved, nobody blinked, nobody breathed. And in the center stood a preacher holding a bell. The footage lasted 12 seconds. When Marcus tried showing friends, the tape erased itself. Every copy disappeared, every backup corrupted, only eyewitness descriptions remained. Years passed, more stories emerged, more sightings, more fear. Then came the count. Researchers began comparing reports, witnesses, names, disappearances, hallucinations, dreams, recordings. Something impossible appeared. Every source referenced the same number, 347. Nobody knew why. Nobody understood its meaning. Yet every investigation eventually arrived there. 347 voices, 347 shadows, 347 figures, 347 singers. Eventually, one historian ignored the warning. He counted them, every single figure visible in dozens of reports. 347. 3 days later, he vanished. His apartment remained untouched. Coffee still warm, television still running, shoes by the door. Only one thing was missing. And scratched into the wall beside his desk were 6 words. Now there are 348. Today the meadow still exists, hidden beyond overgrown trees, far from highways, far from tourists, far from maps. Locals avoid it, hunters avoid it, animals avoid it. No birds nest there, no insects buzz there, no flowers grow there. Yet every Juneteenth night, residents claim they hear singing carried across the wind, a distant choir, growing louder, growing closer, year after year. And if the legend is true, the preacher is still waiting, bell in hand, song unfinished, waiting for someone new to listen, waiting for someone new to join the choir, waiting for someone curious enough to count. And according to the oldest version of the story, if you ever hear singing on a Juneteenth night, and someone asks how many voices there are, do not answer. Because the moment you know the number, the choir learns your name.